Hello, everybody. Hope you're all doing well. Welcome to the Charity FPL Chess League Season 2. We're back after a few months off, and looking forward to what's in store. We're already 2 weeks in. We've had quite a few games coming in, and if you don't know what the Charity FPL Chess League is, I will be explaining a bit more about what that is a little bit later on. But first of all, I'll just introduce myself. I'm Joel. You'll find me on Twitter at FFJoel. And I'm joined by Frenk, who... do you want to introduce yourself?
Yes, thank you, Joel. I'm Frenk. You can find me on Twitter at PsychoFPL. I've been playing FPL for, I think, 15 seasons now, but... maybe more relevant for today's purposes, I've been playing chess for almost all my life. So I'm looking forward to this combination of things.
Nice, 15 years, wow, that's great. And would you like to maybe mention how good you are at chess? Because I think that's worth noting.
Yeah. I used to be pretty decent, so I used to play with as much fanaticism as I play FPL now, I guess. I at some point obtained the FIDE Master title, and I have a FIDE rating of, I think it's something like 2230 or something like that.
Wow.
But you could basically say I've retired from serious chess like 10 years ago. So I'm playing a lot of online.
So you do play a lot
Blitz.
online, yeah?
Yeah, I play all the time. But yeah. So it's not as serious anymore as it was maybe 20 years ago.
Very nice, very nice. And I'm just a little old kind of 1500 rated player. So, I would love to give as much chess insight as I can, but I know that Frank will be probably correcting me many times. So, just to say a little bit more about what the competition is. So, we're all FPL players who like a bit of chess. So, in Season 1, we had 18 players across 3 different divisions. It was really good fun. We really enjoyed it. But this season, we've managed to get another 30 people. So, we've got 48 players in total. Again, we've got 3 levels, but at each level, there are 2 divisions of 8. 8 players per division. And it's like a round robin. You'll play each player in your division in 2 games of 15-10, so that's 15 minutes per side plus a 10-second increment. It's going to be great fun. As you can see on the right-hand side, this is Division 1B, so this is, if you know your chess ratings, players roughly rated between 1500 and 1800, so kind of an intermediate standard. So, it should be good fun. And we've got, Hasan, who is at Hasan FPL on Twitter, and Tanyishun at Eddie _Sun, Eddie_Tan on Twitter, playing today. And hopefully their game is getting underway very, very shortly. So, we hope you enjoy it. And I'm just going to try and bring up their game if I can. So while I do that, Frank, you've played your wild card this week. So how's that been going in FPL?
I played it a week earlier than I actually wanted to do it. I always thought I would play it in 8, but I anticipated I would be priced out of a lot of things I really wanted if I would wait until 8. So I played a little bit early. I ended up going very big at the back with 2 Chelsea, 2 City, and keeping Trent.
Nice.
Because I think there's so much value in this sort of budget, mid-price, midfield that I thought I'd get away with that. But we'll see.
Who've you got up top? Have you gone for both?
Anton, no. That would be impossible with that back line, right? So I have I went with Antonio, Lukaku, and Tony.
Nice. Yeah, that's so you're backing Tony to continue his form, even though he's got tough fixtures.
Yeah, it's a long-term pick.
Yeah.
I think, and he manages to do pretty well against any opposition thus far. So he's a hold for quite a while, I think.
Nice. Yeah, I've just used had one free transfer, and I did Luke Shaw to Alonso quite early on, which was a bit risky, I know, but I'm hoping that he starts. I'm not confident. I must say I'm not confident at all. But
It's tricky, isn't it? Yeah.
yeah, I went quite early, so I thought, because I was thinking I'd like to catch the price rises, and I was just thinking the upside as well is there with him. If he does start, I think you can get some attacking returns. So that was
You could,
the hope.
yeah, and it's a one. You know, if he indeed he has lost his place to Chilwell, you can always downgrade to Chilwell or to
Yeah,
James if he's bound to be back soon as well. So
yeah, certainly, yeah.
yeah.
Right, the game is underway. I've sent you the link there. Hopefully that's come through.
Did you send? Sorry, Joel. Did you send that to me in on Twitter?
Just
Yeah,
now.
there we go.
Just now.
Yeah. Okay. Got it.
So they've actually 11 moves in already, so we'll just whiz through quite quickly. So we see a Karakan from Hasan, who's playing black in this first game. So the Karakan is when you play c6 to when white plays e4. That's actually an opening I like to play as black. Do you play the Karakan at all, Frank?
No, I'm still in the process though of getting the
Let me try again.
getting the game on my screen.
Did it just send you to the chess.com website?
Yeah, it does, but I didn't immediately get linked to the right game.
Oh,
Hold
that's
on.
weird.
It'll be fine, I'm sure. There we go. Here we go.
You got it. Perfect.
There we go. Okay.
Right.
No, I don't play the Karakan. I've played it against the Karakan, but not as a black player. Okay, let's see what's going on.
Do you want to go back to back to the start of the game and talk us through kind of the first few moves, this particular variation of the Karakan?
Yes. So we see the advance variation where it's pretty. I'm not very knowledgeable about the Karakan, but I think it's pretty straightforward line. There are some. I always kind of like parts of this as a black player to the extent that I think I should be playing the Karakan because I have played the French a lot, and you know if you look at this, it's similar to the French advanced variation with a big advantage that that terrible bishop, the white squared bishop is outside of the pawn chain, right? So looking at this position, I already like black a lot actually, because you need this pressure on the d4 pawn. But then we see that black takes the, what's usually known as the poison pawn on b2. The greedy approach to take that pawn that can work out, but it can be tricky because your queen can get trapped, obviously.
But no danger of it right now.
No. It's but the advantage, of course, white gives the pawn, but has some developmental advantage in the sense that it's a bit for white is more advanced, getting the pieces out and castling and everything. But it looks comfortable for black,
Yeah.
As you say, the queen is safe. You have the knights are out. Yeah, no real issues.
I think the critical piece is probably the d4 pawn in this position, right? Because it kind of is anchoring the whole of white's position, kind of keeping that e5 pawn in such a good position. Yeah.
And then what white often tries to do, of course, is attack on the king side with the f and g pawns, and try to push f4, f5, those kinds of things. Yeah. Yeah.
So Tanyishun's going into a bit of a think now, which is good. You've got plenty of time actually, really, when you're playing 15-10, and especially with the increment. And it's good once you get past the opening to not rush things and to kind of get to grips with a complex position. So, what would your plans be now then if you were white?
I would try to create some kind of pressure over the F file. I would consider this is so the exchange. So now already, so white is offering an exchange here of queens, which let's say I wouldn't have done. As I said, I would really try to go for the attack. You've sacrificed the pawn, right? So the more pieces you exchange subsequently, the more the less difficult it will be to get anything back as compensation. Now I would definitely, as black, I would exchange queens because you run less of a risk, obviously, to be attacked. So yeah, I probably would have played my queen elsewhere, maybe to d3, and then push g4, and then move my white colored bishop in an f4, f5, etc. But now, it'll be difficult to get the compensation for the pawn.
Yeah, it's yeah. So if you are, I guess you want to kind of use these open files as well. If you're white, maybe like get yourself onto the B file with the rooks, with the rook.
Exactly. So what you could do is like I'm moving the pieces on my own screen now.
Okay.
Let's say if the exchange indeed occurs, well, that doesn't work. Wait. How do I analyze from here? Do you know? Oh, it's been exchanged.
There is there should be a button on the side somewhere to your right. Never mind if you can't find it. We'll just,
So this, you're right indeed. You want to put some pressure with the rooks on the B and the C file, and maybe try to develop the knight to C5, right? To put some pressure on the queen side, because you still have a developmental advantage. Well, this is as we would say a blunder, because now of course bishop B2 wins the exchange. Attacking both rooks. So now this is so that is unfortunate for white, because now it does seem to be very difficult.
Yeah, if you're new to chess, we would say that a rook is more valuable than a bishop, but he's not even going to lose the exchange now. He's just going to fall and lose. Oh no, sorry, the knight.
No, it's an exchange. Yeah,
the knight, of course. Yeah, not great having a knight in A1 right in the corner, but a rook is definitely more valuable than a bishop.
Yeah.
So it's the first real mistake of the game. I guess now if you're black, you just want to castle probably on the king side and then just get your rooks into the game.
I probably wouldn't even castle. I probably
really?
I would probably just play king d7 and go for a little bit more activity already, because you're in an end game. You don't need to castle, and there's not even if the king remains in the middle of the board, there's not really much threat, right? As I think an American grandmaster, Zinji Hashvili, used to say, now I have the pawn and the compensation, right? Sometimes you sacrifice something and then but you get some kind of compensation positionally for it. And in this case, black has the exchange and the compensation, you could say, because it's the knights are really wonderfully placed, right? They're active, they're pressurizing d4. You have the C file. And the bishops, the white bishops on e3 and f3, they're really sort of awkwardly placed there.
So you wouldn't touch the bishop on e3 if you're black. You wouldn't take it with the knight. You just leave it there because it's not really doing enough.
It's like a pawn now, isn't it? I
Yeah,
mean, it doesn't really doesn't do a lot. B6 played by Hasan is really good because it prevents the knight that is now on B3 to advance further, right, to C5 or
yeah,
something.
yeah.
So it's really curtailing white even further. So what I would just do, I would as black, I would double up on the rooks on the C file probably, and so this is a good one because black actually could have played knight b4 if white wouldn't have played this, and that would be really uncomfortable. So this prevents that, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Castling is fine, of course.
Yeah.
So what do you do now with white, right? So what are the ways in which you can maybe try to get some counterplay, even though your the material disbalance is unpleasant. So G4 I like.
Yeah, my initial thought
Chase
was...
that knight.
Go on.
No, I was finished. Just chase that knight away.
Yeah, yeah. I was wondering if, because that bishop on f3 is in quite an awkward place, I'm wondering if you'd want to be kind of playing f4 and then marching your pawns up on the king side just to put a bit of pressure on. And then maybe that would create some space for the bishops once, and maybe make them a bit more useful with their long range. I don't know what you think about that sort of plan.
Yeah, I like that a lot. That's as I said just now, the bishops were awkwardly placed, and well, the black squared bishop is already has improved, right? But now indeed remove the bishop from f3 to create this opportunity to move that f pawn forward. As I said in the beginning, that's sort of the idea of the position, that you really try to attack.
Yeah.
And of course, it's less easy to attack with fewer pieces on the board. So that's unfortunate. But then now it's time to move that bishop. Probably to d1, because then you also prevent rooks from entering on c2 or something.
Yeah, that's a good shout. Would you be would you be confident as white that you could get a draw out of this game? The bishop pair is quite important.
Yeah, but you're down an exchange and a pawn, right?
Yeah.
So I would be not very confident to be honest. Okay, so this bishop e2, it has some. It's interesting as well, because ideally, perhaps you would want that bishop to go to a6 to be particularly annoying for black's plan to maybe double up on the c file and then create entry in that way. So I like this one. What I would do now, if I were black, I would probably play a5, the pawn from a7 to a5, because that would make it possible to then subsequently, take the c6 knight to b4 anyway, because that's what you really want as black, and it's now impossible because it's protected, the square by the bishop on d2. f6.
I guess trying to open up the position.
Yeah, nothing wrong with that. Although eventually, if the more you open it up, the more the bishops will be able to do their business.
Would you now maybe double up on the f file instead of the c file?
Yeah, by now, yes. Yeah, probably.
Just trying to think what I would do if I was white here.
So I was thinking about playing bishop g5.
Yeah.
But then maybe actually knight b4 is an option then. I can't, it sounds like that would be possible. Oh, this is interesting.
Yeah, I guess you'd be removing your bishop away from the protection of the b4 square and allowing the knight to enter in. Yeah.
Yeah.
But that's not really played. Putting pressure on on e6, the backwards pawn there.
Hmm.
But does
Yeah, so
just play
I
rook
see that,
f1,
but the
f8 here or something?
the c8 rook to f8
Yeah,
probably,
yeah,
and
yeah,
then put pressure on f2 on that pawn. Yeah, and a disadvantage of rook e3 is that it blocks the bishop on d2, right? So that
yeah.
the bishop that had such a nice diagonal and sort of options to go to g5, for example, is now curtailed. So,
Hmm.
but it's interesting. The position is opening up, so that we're going to see some more action as a result of that, I'm sure. And
Yeah.
it potentially becomes trickier. Of course, black is still, by all accounts, winning, but you still have to, get it over the line, and that
Hmm.
becomes always a little bit more tricky if the position opens up a little bit. So now we
Yeah.
just protect the pawn on f2, maybe just by playing bishop e1.
Hmm. Very passive bishop, but I'm not sure what other option you have really. You
Well, you could advance it, right? You could play f3.
f3, but yeah,
It's
blocks.
also very
Hmm.
ugly, isn't it?
Yeah.
As black now, I kind of like the whatever route white chooses to, protect that pawn. I kind of like the approach to play the knight from that's now on e7 to play to g6 and then to f4 or to h4, right? So
Yeah.
there's really an opportunity for black to use the black squares on the king's side,
Hmm.
right? So now 96, knight f4, 96, knight h4, something along those lines.
Yeah. Yeah. The knight's not doing an awful lot there, and on e7, especially with the f5 square protected. So bringing it more into the game is definitely a great shout. Yeah, that's a move that's quite hard to see. I think even for intermediate players, that's something I would find quite hard to see. That's for sure. So that's a good plan. Yeah, I think if you're white, just being passive and trying to protect everything, I would have thought that's probably eventually something's going to crumble. One of the weaknesses in his position is going to be to prove too much of a weakness, and he'll maybe drop the d4 pawn or f2.
Mm.
I don't know. Do you think he can protect everything at once, or do you think it's going to eventually become too much if he doesn't kind of try and create some of his own chances?
Yeah, I think it would become too much. As I said, black can really be, very this. But now a
That's
knight
interesting.
d8, I didn't like much. Knight
Mm,
d8, the retreat with the knight. There was no need to do that as yet, right?
mm.
The pawn on e6 was protected, but now
It's a
g5.
very
That's
interesting move.
very interesting. Yeah.
I mean, you should probably just keep the rooks doubled up,
So
wouldn't you?
probably, yeah, but then now there is an option for white to then also develop the bishop from e2 to g4, right, and put even more pressure on
Mm,
e6. The Yeah, so you really want to get your pieces as active as possible as white here, and you have a few problems, of course. The knight on b3 really can't go anywhere, and the bishop on e1 is also just doing its defensive duties.
mm.
So
And now, actually, the fact that he
mm,
moved his knight back to d8, he is now protecting that e6 pawn, which otherwise,
yeah, that's
he
true.
would have had to
Yeah,
worry about. So,
yeah.
as passive as it is,
Tonight
it
probably.
did have a function. It did have a purpose to it, which is important,
Yeah,
especially at this level. You want kind of. I know it's hard if you're a beginner sometimes, if you don't know quite what to do just do any sort of move, but at this level, every move needs to have some sort of purpose, and
right.
it did do that, even if it was a bit of a dubious one in terms of it being quite passive.
Now I guess you just have, as white, you have to protect that pawn on g5,
Mm,
playing h4,
yeah.
for example. Um, you could also protect it with your rook, but I would prefer to. Yeah, I like this. I
Yeah, I
like
think
this
that's
better.
better, isn't it?
And now the idea of white is to next maybe play bishop g4,
Mm.
and this prevents that, of course. So I like this
Okay,
move.
so black is and attacking the H pawn at the same time, which pretty
Yeah.
much forces either rook H3 or F3.
Or you go completely for mayhem by playing something like bishop b4. That would also be an option, but this is the more defensive approach. Yeah, so that I don't know. Bishop f5, knight f5 was also an option perhaps, but now black just wants to put more, go back to plan A, so to speak, and attack that d4 pawn again.
While simultaneously still having e6 protected, having kind of rejigged the knight slightly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But now white can of course play bishop g3.
That's an
And
interesting
then, probably force a retreat of that
Yeah.
of that rook. I would definitely consider that.
Just probably back to f7 or f5
Something
maybe.
like that. Yeah.
And then that bishop's kind of activated now. It's got a nice
Yeah,
diagonal
because
that it's on. And
yeah, you can even then play bishop d6, right, to be a little bit more annoying even, and attack that f8 rook. So there's yeah, nice. You played it.
Yeah, and he's
Now
gone
black
ahead
could
and
even
done just that.
Yeah, so black could consider giving the exchange back here by taking on d4 with the knight. And you take the rook with your bishop, and then take on e2. And then I can't move the pieces on my screen.
I can show
but,
that
if you
line.
can.
Yeah.
So you take on d4. White takes on f4. Then you take on e2. Rook takes e2, and then rook takes f4. Then black is probably still winning.
Yeah.
But
I'm just trying to get up the analysis. Where has it gone? It's there it is. So I'll show that line properly. So it's knight d4, bishop takes f4, with the idea that then you take the bishop with check. Is that right?
Yeah. So then you have to take it with the rook, and then play rook takes f4.
So at the end of all that, we've got black up 2 pawns, with a passed pawn on d5, which is probably still winning. I would probably be reluctant to go for it if it was me, but it does simplify the position.
Yeah. Yeah. And you're sort of, because a pair of bishops can be a very powerful thing in chess, of course. So especially when the position opens, it can become really a really powerful tool.
Yeah.
So this would be a way to get rid of that, right? As black.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Yeah, 2 pawns ought to be enough of an advantage in an endgame to win, especially with only then a rook and a knight left on the board for each side. But you still have to play accurately.
Right.
But I think White's doing really well to hold things together at the moment. I'm quite impressed.
Yeah, I like it too. Yeah.
Just trying to have everything covered, and then creating some more space for his bishops with this bishop to g3 move. I think he's doing well.
Yeah.
So what about?
He must be gutted by giving the exchange away that early on, because given the way he's played throughout the game, this is let's say he's better. He's clearly better than that, right? So
yeah, absolutely.
It's a pity. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely an uncharacteristic mistake, I would say.
Regret. The regret I'll probably feel about all the players I've sold today that will be hauling.
Yeah. Yeah. That's always the way on wildcard. It's so often you have a terrible first week when you wildcard because all your old players haul and all that sort of thing.
Right. Greenwood, Shaw.
Yeah,
it's going to be terrible for sure. So, but White is definitely sort of getting back into the game. That's nice to see.
Before King G2, what did you think to Bishop D6 instead, just to kind of remove? Well,
Oh, that's
he's already
interesting.
kind of done it, but I was
Yeah,
thinking
he's done it
remove a rook
anyway.
from the
Yeah.
F file.
Yeah. Although the reason why Black played Rook E8 now is that maybe the business on the F file is sort of over, in the
Yeah.
sense that there's not a lot of momentum there. So Black now is it's probably reorganizing and potentially playing, thinking about forcing an advance of that E pawn. I mean, you can't do it now, but it's a plan. But it's a long way to go, because even if you
Oh, that's an interesting move. H5. He's
H5,
going for an
yeah.
attack, but does it really amount to anything?
No, I don't think so. Again, I would really consider, as Black, I would really consider activating the knights. So I would maybe play something like knight E7 and then knight F5 next, because sure, the knight on C6 now attacks that pawn, but it's protected, and it's sort of it's like a deadlock kind of position, right?
Yeah.
Whereas if it's on F5, it's really annoying, because it would do the same job in attacking that D4 pawn, but also
and then maybe you could rework your F7 rook over to the C file and see if you can infiltrate that way.
Yeah.
Yeah, I like that. Okay, so the plan is clearly to try and advance that E pawn, but I don't know whether that's. The computer certainly doesn't like that move.
The computer doesn't like Rook E7, you mean?
No.
Or what? Okay.
I'm not sure why. I've just got the evaluation bar here. It can be quite easy. When there's a mistake when the evaluation bar kind of swings in one direction. It's not a blunder, but I suspect it's.
I mean, the plan is clear, right? The plan is just to play E5.
Yeah.
If Black is able to do that, then I can see why that is something you'd like.
But opening up the position even more surely just favours the bishops, or at least makes them stronger.
And if anything, I mean, White could just play Bishop D6, right? And you have to go back, and then you haven't really made any progress.
Yeah.
The question is, who does it really favor if that E5 move is made? Okay, so indeed he goes for the disturbance. You probably play Rook D7, then you go back.
They're starting to come under a bit of time pressure now.
Which is always nice.
Around 5 minutes, so it
for,
could
for
get
us.
a bit crazy.
For us, that's nice.
Yeah. So
what is the increment? What's the increment again? How much do they get?
10 seconds.
Oh, 10 seconds. Yeah. Okay.
So at this point, I would start worrying about making blunders under pressure, especially with actually what is still quite a complicated position.
It is.
Do you like your blitz, or do you prefer longer time controls?
No, I only play blitz.
You only play blitz. Nice.
I usually do it while I'm working, and it's sort of a nice sort of 6-minute distraction. Play 3 minutes, 3 minutes each game, and then So I don't like A5 at all for this particular reason, because now Bishop B5, it completely blocks the pawns, and you see that diagonal from B5 to E8. It's really unpleasant for Black, isn't it?
The bishop can just stay there without,
You can't move the knight.
Yeah.
White can even, as a next. I mean, isn't like Rook C3 even a clear threat now, because how would you protect that knight and you can't
Yeah.
remove it? It seems very unpleasant.
Mm. Which means he would have
So
to
that's
play something like rook to c7 to protect it, and
right.
then
No, you can't because the bishop is on h2.
oh, so it is. Yeah, of
You, so you
course. Oh,
so this
he
is where you
hasn't.
clearly see the power of a pair of bishops, right?
Mm.
You see that they're sort of really cutting through the black position, the black squares, the white squares. So there's some trouble here for black, I think.
So how
And the
does he save this knight then? Is it possible? Is he gonna have to
um,
give back the exchange?
I don't see how you would. Well, he's played rook f7, so now rook c3, and you basically you can't protect it anymore.
It's a very rare case of like a double pin. You move one of the rooks out the
Oh,
pin, you still
that's
got the pin.
oh
Oh
f4. That's
no.
unfortunate. Oh, that's a pity because it's why you're right. I mean, it also it completely blocks the h. It locks in the h2 bishop.
Yeah. Oh, that's a
Uh,
big mistake.
that's too bad. Actually, I liked. I think white was actually even better
Yeah, I'm
before
just going to
this.
show the sequence of moves instead of um, f4. So yeah, just swing the
Rook
rook over to
c3.
c3, and then yeah, there's nothing you can really do about that.
No, I think
Um,
white was better at that point.
and then I guess if you lose the bishop, what we'd have two rooks and a knight against a rook and three minor pieces. It's close to even, I guess, on the
Yeah, yeah.
material count.
Now, of course, black is escaping that pin, right? So
Yeah.
now the knight on c6 isn't pinned anymore. So if you play rook c3 now, which is probably still uh,
Still not
okay.
bad, yeah.
But then, so where do you go now with the where you can play? Yeah, it's still there are some issues.
I mean, if you do
So what
play
would you
rook
do here,
c7, can you
Joe?
just if you played rook c7, can you just advance f5?
For sure, yeah, that would be terrible, right? Because for black,
Yeah.
so then the bishop on h2 is completely back in the game, and you
What knight b4
that
here
would be an
then?
issue. Yeah, that's what I would do, I guess. And then I would probably play rook c8 to pin that knight on d8. And then
Hmm.
what though, right? So how do you protect that? Because you can't protect. Oh, you have
I'll
rook
show you.
f8 then.
Yeah. Okay, so yeah, then you've
Knight
got that
a7.
pin. Yeah, you'd have to
Hmm.
play
So this is
one rook back.
nice. Knight a7 is nice because it prevents the rook c8 entry.
Yeah.
So now you have to retreat the bishop. You don't want to lose that bishop. Uh,
And then
I
it's
probably
go on.
hmm.
Yeah.
No, I probably play to d3.
Mhm.
So with the idea of then subsequently playing g6.
Ooh. Yeah.
And if black would then take with the h pawn on g6, you can take it back with the bishop, and
I'll show that. Yeah.
then it's really active in a different way. Right? So then you've regained this a
Okay.
very nice position for the bishop.
Yeah. Just playing. So I'll show that. So I'll just play whatever move there for black, and then so what? G6
Yeah,
takes, and then the bishop is planted in black's
yeah,
territory. Yeah, I like that plan.
just played it. So you probably want to avoid that. The reason why g6 is so annoying for black is that you you can't you can't play h6 and just close the position because your rook is attacked. So one
Mm.
thing you could do here is just remove that rook on f7, and okay. So now actually, wait a minute. So interesting. What if you just take on h7 now with the bishop?
Ooh. Let's have a look. So then you would win the
You do the
rook.
fork on g6.
Yeah.
Yeah. So then you get the exchange back. It's still probably winning for black, but um,
Then it's only he'd only be one pawn up, Hasan.
mhm.
In
Yeah.
that
So you
case.
probably want to play that then.
Mm.
G6. It's yeah. So he doesn't go for that. There's still the plan is good. Bishop takes on h7 probably would have been a little bit better, but there's still there are some chances for white to regain that counterplay. Now take with the bishop.
So yeah, if bishop takes h7, would you could maybe just move the king either side instead, maybe, and then
And then just give the exchange back. You mean?
do you think it'd be better to give the exchange back than to just lose the pawn?
No, no, no. I don't think so. I don't think so. I would just play rook f6, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah.
So now what you would want as white is to activate that bishop on h2 because that's not in a good place. It's actually unfortunate because earlier, remember when white played that bishop to h2, he could also have played it to g3 where he moved it now, right?
Right.
There
Yeah.
was no real reason to play it to h2. If it would have been on g3 already, then now of course you have the bishop to h4,
Mm.
which he's aiming for. So you can play this
What's the thinking
anyway,
behind
I guess.
rook b7
Yeah.
then? It's very
I don't
passive to
know.
me.
Well, he wants to avoid the pin, right? So there's
Right.
the
Yeah.
diagonal, but it's still. Look at that. Okay, and I don't. Oh, now we're
Time is definitely a
going very
factor at the
quickly.
moment. I think it's.
Yeah. So black is now trying to win the d4 pawn. It's by chasing away the knight on b3.
Yeah.
The idea is that if of course white moves it, then you can
Yeah.
take on d4, which seems like a good plan. So now indeed I would take that.
Mm. And that is then one of the weaknesses in White's position. Finally
Now you have to get
exploited.
in. But now, yeah, oh, that's true. But now white has to, yes, attack.
Okay, nice
Knight
move.
c8.
Mm-hmm.
But still, it's. You wish the rest of the pieces were a little bit more active than they are.
Yeah, especially that bishop on g3.
Yeah, but that can go to h4,
Yeah. Oh, true.
and then even attack the knight on d8.
Mm.
But then still, that
That
knight on
knight is.
d2.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that knight was really bad on b3 before. Now it's on d3 on d2, and it still can't go anywhere, right? So
Mm.
but it's going quickly now. Time indeed is a factor.
Gets to a point where you almost want to just play what is a good move, not necessarily the best move, unless you
For sure.
can spot a tactic that's going to win you the game. I guess if you're black, you just want to not make any mistakes now, and eventually you'll have enough to win the game, I would say.
And if you're ahead in material, it's nearly always a good idea to exchange
Yeah.
things to simplify the position even further. So what would you do now? Because the knight is attacked. What would be where would you go? Would you protect it, or would you?
Just having a think. Well,
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
I was thinking
This is
about
okay.
knight f5, but I wasn't sure.
I was thinking about that as well. Yeah. So now you can play bishop c5 to you continue to see how annoying these such a pair of bishops can be, but he doesn't want to do it because he wants to protect the f4 pawn.
Yeah.
Because
Sensible.
white thinks he's sacrificed enough, so not wants to hang on to that pawn. But I still think there's still some twists possible here. Oh, okay.
Trying to maybe exchange that rook off the board and simplify the position a bit.
Yeah. So basically, And now white can win a pawn back.
Yeah,
But
okay.
black's idea was that getting rid of that rook on the back rank was more important than the pawn. But of course now the a4 pawn is also likely to be
You're pretty
removed from the board.
much forced into a3. I guess this is where one of the things that's going well for white is that he's got these two long-range bishops on the board, and this rook kind of can't quickly get itself over to the queen side.
No. Well, if you can play a3, but then white could respond with bishop c5,
right?
attacking both the pawn and the rook.
And then he drops the a3 pawn, and then there's a pass pawn for white on the a file.
So what black goes for the sort of the counter attack. So basically, the idea being you can take my pawn, but I'll take yours on h5.
Yeah, that's good move.
Which is sensible. Oh, white wants more than a pawn, sort of trying to attack the knights.
The b8 knight's looking a bit ugly now.
Yes. The question is, can you trap it? Right. So it is trapped. Actually, if you go back a little bit.
Yeah.
It's going very quickly. But white could have played bishop c7, and then the knight couldn't gone anywhere. But there probably were other ways.
Probably would have
maybe d4 or something.
Yeah, or protected it with the other knight, maybe.
You can't. You can't protect it from b8 from f7. But it's going. Well, let's not dwell on the past too long because the game is going very quickly. So now at least white has a passed pawn on a2. So that's his. But probably this is not good. I
only
think,
chance of getting a win, but yeah, it's.
Ooh. Yeah, but the bishop is hanging on b6. So I would play bishop d4 now, because that also prevents that rook from, creeping in behind that precious pawn on a2 as he's played. So rook d4, bishop d4 is a very good move.
And it's important to stay on that diagonal to stop rook g1 as well, skewering the other bishop.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that's a good point. I didn't even see that. So now you have to maybe like this. And now what you want to do more than anything else is run with that pawn on h4. That's like the only hope white has, obviously.
Yeah.
But I think that's a good one. So this aims for f5, right? Knight f5. That basically it forks the king and the bishop on d4, and now knight f5 is a good move, because then you'll have to take it with the bishop on g6, and then you no longer have that precious pair of bishops.
Yeah, and we see that very sequence. And with the extra pawn as well, I think it looks like black is going to have enough.
Oh, and now he loses the knight, and that's the end of it, I think.
I think he might resign now.
Yeah, probably.
Down goes the knight, so it's a full rook ahead now, and a pawn.
Yeah.
Stick yourself on a3.
Yeah, exactly.
And you could just maybe sack here. You could
sack what?
No, sorry. Ignore me. Never mind.
He's resigned. Yeah.
Wow. That's game one completed.
It was.
Yeah, what do you
it was an interesting game. It looked as though it would become sort of a one-sided affair in the beginning, because first the queens were exchanged, which probably wasn't ideal for white, and then he gave up the exchange. But white got a lot of counterplay, and it could have gone. I think there was an option at some point where white even could have gained an advantage later on. And there you see the power of the bishops, the pair of bishops in an open position.
And when you're down material, the best thing you can do is make life difficult for your opponent, make it a bit more complicated. And you did that very well.
Give him the opportunity to make mistakes, basically.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So we're on to game two. Have you got it up?
Yeah.
So yeah, in these matches
So this is Hasan again against SG Sport?
Yep, so colours are swapped, so each match there's 2 games, one with each colour. So yeah, we've got a opening that I'm really not familiar with at all.
It's the Vienna. It's what I used to play when I was a kid. I like it for reasons that well, you as you can see already, you very quickly can get active play on the king side, right? With the f4 pawn, and then sort of the opportunity perhaps to open up the f file at some point and put the pressure on f7. But now actually this is pretty positional now. Now because the black pawn structure is a little bit damaged, right, by having to take that take back on c6. So now one thing you can do with white is just take with f4 pawn on e5, and then black has to take, take back, and then you see basically the black pawn chain is completely fragmented. So I would, if I were white, I would definitely take on e5 as soon as possible here.
I was going to ask you whether in this sort of position you would want to castle queenside with white, but obviously with the b file now open, it's probably quite sensible.
Exactly that.
Casting on the king side.
Yeah. Also, and in terms of you castle on the if you castle on the king side, you immediately have that rook on the f file where you want it to begin with. So it's yeah, white is in good shape here. What you usually see is that then black tries to, of course, gain counterplay through the center and on the queen side as he does here. Rook b8. You can.
So I guess
that's white. I would still take on e5 because it also prevents any kind of sort of d6, d5 like counterplay, right? At some point. So because then. If you exchange the pawns on e5, what is black gonna do? Where's black's counterplay gonna come from? It's difficult to see that.
And then you'd have those isolated pawns on c6 and c7, the double pawns with no protection.
Exactly.
It's a very weak, important weakness. That's the difference between like a really advanced player and then kind of an intermediate player. Because my initial instinct when I see this position is, I need to not lose b2, so I'd play like rook b1 or b3, and that is the difference in quality. Seeing that actually you can play these intermediate moves, because obviously if you take on e5, you're attacking the knight.
The knight, exactly. Yeah. And if I were black now, I would prevent that taking on e5 by taking on f4, for example. I still like white's position even then, but. If white can take on e5, I really think it's this is h6. I mean, what you generally try to avoid in positions like this is to give white something to chew on the king side, right? So now this h6 pawn is potentially something that's under attack, right? g4, g5, right?
Yeah.
Oh, we have the lineups for United Everton. If anyone's interested.
Yeah,
let's see.
Do tell.
Here we go. Shaw does play. I sold Shaw on the wild card, so I was hoping he wouldn't play.
I was thinking he would be. I thought he was going to be out.
Are you serious? Ronaldo is benched.
Oh yes. Did you know I'm an Everton fan, by the way?
Oh, okay.
And well, I don't own Ronaldo, so this is good.
I don't own Ronaldo either. So this is.
Let's
really
hope for a 1-pointer off the bench.
Cavani plays.
Interesting. Wonder why that is.
Up front. That is amazing. It's hard to be focused on the game now for a little bit, isn't it? Because this is so. But let's go back to the game. White really has an advantage here in my view, because there's this potential threat of taking on h6 now with the bishop, right, and threatening mating. Of course, the pawn is pinned and you can't take back. So white is Hasan is again in good shape here.
So he's off.
Oh, but
Yeah,
that Ronaldo benched. I mean, it's so it's such a such a bomb, isn't it? My, yeah.
not for me.
No, I don't have Ronaldo
Oh
either. But I
yeah,
mean, it's such it's big news, isn't it? I
Twitter
mean,
will be in meltdown right now. I'm imagining.
yeah.
Yeah. So he's getting out of the
Oh
pin.
my. Yeah, exactly. But then, of course, e5 is also hanging, right? So white can just
Snap that up. Yeah.
potentially just take that pawn on e5.
A beginner
White is in
principle is
really
not
good
to
shape.
like have your king kind of open, keep it protected by the pawns. But in this instance, when black doesn't really have any attack, it doesn't really matter that white has got, the f2 pawn missing, because he's just
No,
creating so many threats. So that's
it's an advantage. The f2 pawn being um, not having the f2 pawn just opens up the f file. So it's
yeah,
really an attacking approach. And now, well, you basically see now that the disadvantage of that h7 h6 move black played a few moves back because you immediately run into trouble, right?
mm.
Because of that bishop takes h6 threat a few moves ago. Okay, but let's see if there are ways in which black can fight back.
So this bishop is quite well placed now on that
Yeah.
diagonal.
Although, of course, if you move the queen from e5, you immediately threaten the pin with e4, e5.
Mm.
The pin,
The
sorry, the
the fork,
fork.
yeah.
Yeah.
So he's going after the a6 pawn, somewhat removing the queen from the kingside attack. But I don't know what you think about that, whether that's a good idea or not.
Well, maybe he thinks why not start having having a go at these queenside pawns, right?
Well, yeah, I guess can he avoid the fork and dropping the a6 pawn? Well, he's just given away the fork. He's just given that away. Must have missed
Does
it.
it work? Does it work? E5. Why not? Oh no, it doesn't. Yeah, it does work, I guess.
I don't see why it doesn't work. I don't know. Takes.
Oh, it doesn't work. You play e5 and then it's bishop b4. So black has sort of
Oh, I
an
see.
has an escape there.
Ah, yeah, very nice. Hitting the queen, so the queen has to move first.
Yes, yes. What you could play though, you could take on h6 with the bishop.
Oh my word, that's
Because
wild.
if black takes the bishop, then f6 is hanging. You can play rook takes f6. Right? That would have been good, I think.
He's
Okay,
played
but he
knight.
chooses otherwise. Knight e2, the positional approach, trying to because the knight on f3 on c3 didn't have much of a future, right? It couldn't really go anywhere because it couldn't go to d5, and now probably the idea is he wants to maybe go to d4 and then f5 or something.
Ah, okay, yeah, that's
I kind of like
much
that.
better. Yeah.
So you always want to look at your position and see, can I improve the position of my pieces? Is it really, if sometimes there are really sort of tactical things where you can maybe win material or you have a sort of an attack plan, but otherwise it's always good to think, where can I improve my position? Where can I get my pieces in better places than where they are now? And
Yeah. Because with the knight on c3, it can't advance to, d5
d5.
or b5.
Exactly.
So it's a bit stuck there. So rerouting it is a good shout. Okay, so
I like the rook. I like the rook b5.
yeah,
Because it also provides it's active, right? It provides the opportunity to maybe double up on the b file or maybe even redirect that rook towards the king side. So that's nice.
I do like how black has kind of played since the structure got ruined a bit. It's just trying to utilize the open files and yeah. if you're white, do you want to get that rook on b1 into the game? It's just sitting there defending the pawn. It's not really what you want. Where
Yeah,
you
that's
want it
why I
to
probably
be.
would have liked playing b3 instead of rook b1 instead.
Yeah.
Because indeed that rook is not doing much. My mini league rival just sent me a message that he Captain Ronaldo.
Oh no. Oh no.
Oh,
Who do you support?
I support City
Nice.
because I'm not as invested in the teams in the Premier League as most people probably are because I'm not from the UK.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I'm from the Netherlands, and my son, who's 12 now, he's an immense Kevin De Bruyne fan,
Ah. Okay.
and I kind of got sort of sucked into supporting City through him a little bit. And it's if you just as sort of an objective, you know, um, football fan, it's easy to like the kind of play that Pep
Yeah. Of course. Yeah.
promotes, right? So, but
Yeah.
I don't have the sort of the long-standing um,
Not like a
sort of
die-hard supporter sort of thing. Yeah.
commitment
Mm.
to any team. No. I mean, back in the day when like Van Persie and before that Bergkamp played, of course,
Mm.
I really like to watch Arsenal,
Yeah.
and
Of course. Yeah.
so yeah, it's a bit fluid.
Mm.
I wouldn't be as fluid when it comes to supporting Dutch teams.
Do you support a Dutch team?
Yeah, I support Feyenoord, which
Okay.
is really a bad idea because
Why is that?
it's suffering. It's I don't know if there are similar. There are probably similar fan bases in England as well. But
Mm.
if you support Feyenoord, it's sort of something you grow up with, and then you basically suffer all the time because it's never really. It doesn't really lead to a lot of joy and success, if you know what I mean.
Sounds
So,
very familiar as an
oh,
Everton
it
fan.
does. Okay, yeah.
Big
So
club and
maybe I'm a little bit opportunistic in supporting City because as sort of a compensation for the
yeah.
fact that
Yeah.
I've suffered so much in supporting my Dutch team for all my life.
Fair. Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's let's have a look at this move.
Back.
Bishop e5, putting extra pressure on
Yes.
b2.
Yeah. But of course, White can take on c6.
Yeah. Pawn
White
for
could
pawn.
choose to play. Yeah, I was thinking d4, but it doesn't work, I guess, because then Black. I mean, d4 would be it immediately present itself to not only just protect the queen, but also go sort of counterattack. But then e4 is hanging, so then Black could play knight takes e4.
Yeah.
Um, so they probably don't want to do that. Yeah, I'll just take on c6. Never mind that pawn on b2.
Would you then? I'm assuming obviously you'd want to take with the rook or the bishop.
Well, you don't want to take with the bishop, I think,
I was
because
thinking the
if you take on
pin.
c6,
Yeah.
no. The problem is if you take with the bishop, I would take. I play rook. So bishop takes b2, rook takes b2, rook takes b2, and then rook takes f6. Pawn takes f6, queen takes f6, check, and then subsequently take on b2, and then
Wow. Yeah.
Black loses the house. So you
That's
definitely don't want to take with the bishop here.
okay. I see. That is rough. Yeah. So I've just shown that on the
Whereas
board.
if
It leads to mate
okay,
actually.
sorry,
It actually leads to mate apparently, according to
oh okay,
the computer. So yeah, it'd be what? Just basically bringing the bishop in. Yeah, no, that's
yeah,
a really good point.
yeah.
That's hard to spot though. That's really hard to spot.
Yes, I kind of then notice that rook takes f6 is a theme, right? So
Mm.
that's something that completely demolishes the black king side. So that is something you want to you want to look at. So actually, I would in this case prioritize um, going for that. So I would probably just take on b2 now if I were white, then takes back with the bishop, and then lock it up, because that bishop basically protects f6, right?
Yeah.
So, but then if you take
What, play
on
like
b2,
C3, do you mean, or G4?
c3, something like
C3.
that. Yeah, something like that. And then of course bishop takes, rook takes f6 becomes a really serious threat.
Mm. I wonder if Hasan sees that rook f6 idea. I'm not sure I would have done if I was playing white here. I don't know, maybe. Depends how
My
I'm
mini
feeling on the
league
day.
rival now sends me a text that he really appreciates me mentioning the fact that he captained Ronaldo in this streak.
Yeah, it was on my, I think it was my game week 4. I wildcarded in like game week 4 and just went for Lukaku because I just fancied him more than I fancied Ronaldo. And
Yeah,
it's going all right at
it's
the
difficult
moment.
to predict.
Yeah.
But it's difficult to predict, right? And Lukaku hasn't been pulling up trees over the last games, I guess.
No, it was a bit worrying, especially against City and what was the previous game?
Villa. Oh, did he score against Villa? I don't think he did.
No, he got a brace against Villa. I captained him that week. It was against Spurs where to be fair, he did look dangerous at times, but yeah, Lukaku can be frustrating when he's off it. I still think
they were missing supply lines towards him, I guess, and with Mount being out and James. So White is really in the driving seat here with. He didn't see any future for the bishop anymore. The idea was, of course, that if he would go back to d6 instead of take on d4,
there's still
if he play bishop,
the fork,
then e5 would have been played. But now you're really down a piece, right? And again, as the phrase I used earlier, White has the piece and the compensation because you still have the attack.
So, just backing up a couple of moves, where did that all go wrong? At the point of taking the pawn with the rook, or
White already already had a considerable advantage.
Yeah, that according to the computer, that was where the mistake was made, I think. Anyway,
White was a lot better for a while, right? So
yeah.
Now it's just desperate times, as illustrated by h5, which is he wants to avoid bishop takes h6, so it's a sensible move actually, right? You want to avoid that king side to be completely demolished.
I think this game will be over fairly soon. I think it's
it's
even more when you a whole piece down rather than just an exchange. It's even more difficult to fend off any attack, and
exactly, you have a piece more to attack with, right? That's why. So this will indeed be we don't know how long it will go on, but the outcome is pretty close to certain at this point, I think.
I'm just struggling to see as well how Black can make life more difficult and kind of go on the counter-attack. I'm just struggling to see it, really.
Yeah, White has all the cards.
That e4 pawn, could that drop if he played rook e8? I'm just trying to see if it can actually be defended. Say, it's a small consolation.
It is. It's probably it is certainly what I
could well win that.
What I'd play here. But of course, it's White's move. So
yeah, true.
So you could even just play e5 now and chase that knight. And where would it even go? If you think about it.
Like
Back to E8. That's sad, isn't it?
either
So
that or
where is
H7,
it?
isn't it? Neither of those are particularly nice.
Yeah, or D7. D7. It's not good either because then you
Mm,
just play E6, I think, or potentially at least.
yeah.
Yeah, it's looking pretty bad.
He actually offered a draw, which is desperation, I
Sign
guess.
of complete desperation. Yeah.
It's taking a bit of time over this move,
So do
Hasan.
you
Go on.
so do you have Everton players in your team
I do have
as a
Gray.
fan?
Slightly, not as
Okay.
a fan. I try and be as objective as possible with FPL.
Hmm.
So I do have Gray because obviously he's had a great start to the season.
Yeah.
Kind of wanted to bench him this week, but kind of had to play him in the end.
Right.
Just because of the state of my team, really. But yeah, I mean, there was one season where I decided I took inspiration from. I don't know if you remember the guy who won FPL. Must have been like 2015-16 or around that time, but he won it without any Liverpool players in his team as an
Yeah, yeah,
Everton
yeah,
fan.
yeah, yeah,
The
yeah.
next
I,
season, I
I
thought,
heard
oh,
about that.
I'll give that a go. It just happened to be Mo Salah's first season for Liverpool, and obviously
Uh-huh.
my rank heavily suffered as a result.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah.
but since then, I've just been like, no, I've just got to be as objective as possible.
Objective.
If
Yeah.
that means captaining Salah, then that's what it'll be. Okay.
Yeah.
So,
I mentioned the mini league rival, FPL Jaap O, and we've done because we're both psychologists in academia, we work in academia,
oh,
and we've
nice.
done a study in the beginning of the season in which we measure a number of we measure the extent to which people are passionate and committed to passionate about FPL and committed to supporting teams and whether that support also influences their decision making. But what we particularly do is we look at participants' performance in FPL over the season.
Interesting.
And well, looking at performance in past seasons, at least we do see that we already see that people whose choices in terms of which players they want or don't want are influenced by the teams they support or even teams they dislike. Let's say that negatively relates to performance. So, as you say, you try to be as objective as possible, and that it turns out that is a good thing indeed.
Yeah.
Um,
I guess some people will obviously pick players because they support the team, but others might avoid picking the players because they're maybe overly pessimistic about their team's chances. I guess it depends whether you're an optimistic fan or a pessimistic fan.
yeah. It's one of the reasons why I would like to have Ronaldo on my team because I kind of don't particularly like him.
Yeah.
And then if he scores and he's not on my team, it's even worse, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
So
Yeah, I mean, one of the times where actually my kind of pessimism has played to my advantage in FPL is just not picking Digne for, at the start of the season, for example, and rarely doing that because I'm like, we don't keep clean sheets. And he doesn't get enough attacking returns, so I'm not going to have him. Why is everyone buying him? So,
yeah.
It can work from that.
As a supporter, of course, the players a lot better.
Yeah,
And,
of course.
and Dean is definitely a player who promises a lot, but yeah,
Yeah, it doesn't really deliver.
seems to not really deliver as much as.
I think he's a great player. I really like him. It's more my own kind of perception of Everton defensively not being, we're prone to conceding a silly goal in any game.
Right. And you missed out on the recent own goal, so that's good.
Yeah. Right. What's going on with the game? I mean, it's kind of just going into it. It feels like a foregone conclusion, really, short of a blunder from Hasan.
Yeah. Yeah. Why is going for the attack over the seventh?
Yeah, I was thinking just take F7. You can exchange queens.
Offering the exchange. Yeah, that's always good.
So wins another pawn
And
as
if
well.
black doesn't take on c6, then maybe rook takes f6 becomes an issue again.
Yeah. Although, is it quite as devastating as last time? Maybe it is. Let's just see.
Well, I mean, an exchange is about worth a pawn, right? So then you don't even lose material, but then the king is completely exposed. So I would definitely do it now. I would immediately take on f6.
Yeah. It's actually, it does lead to mate as well. So, yeah.
Oh, it does? Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah,
the
just take on
knight.
f6 and knight f5,
Knight
and then
f5,
there's
yeah.
you don't even have to calculate that anymore. So
Threatening
it's
that,
just,
yeah.
surely they'll run mate somehow.
Eventually, yeah.
Yeah.
Retreats, though. Still fine.
Yeah, but he's probably afraid of black entering on b1 or something. But it wasn't a lot to be afraid of.
Just move the king out of the way, and not much of a threat. You might lose your a2 pawn. That's no big deal.
Yeah. Probably knight f5 now.
Yeah.
Because that check on d1 then it's not really a threat, because if you just move your king to h2, you're completely
absolutely
fine there. Yeah.
We've got FPL Glasto in the chat praising your insights. So that's
okay.
good. It's been really good having you on. Someone who can really give some fantastic chess knowledge.
Yeah, it's really nice to do it, and I mean it combines, two obsessions. I mean, one current obsession and one sort of somewhat previous obsession, but it's really nice.
It's good.
So now knight f5 is really good, I think, for white, because you attack g7 and you also prepare that bishop. You protect the bishop and you prepare that bishop to go to d4, and then it must be lights out when you get that diagonal going on there as well.
Yeah, because then you can presumably just exchange off the knight and
exactly.
Yeah, open everything up. Hasan obviously doesn't have a whole load of time at the moment, but I think he's got enough that he won't make a mistake. And there's the increment. Makes a big difference. The increment just gives you that extra bit of space.
Yeah.
I really don't like 3-0 or, if it's blitz, I normally want to have an increment, because I just hate, if you, the worst thing is when you've got a clearly winning position, but you've got 20 seconds left and you have to close it out. And even in a position like this, you've got to kind of close it out really quickly.
But that cuts both ways, doesn't it? I mean, especially when I was playing more, and I was perhaps, I was also a little bit younger than I'm now. I kind of like that sort of chaotic phase, because I also viewed it as an opportunity to maybe rescue lost positions, right? So now as white, of course, you want things to be as simple as they can be.
Yeah.
But,
Yeah, I guess if you have a dead lost position and there is the increment, you have no chance.
5 is nice because it prevents white takes a different route. You still have to close the deal.
Queen c8 maybe?
Yeah, so that prepares... the main threat behind that actually is not attacking the king, but it's preparing queen f5 and then exchanging things, maybe. Exchanging queens.
Yeah.
I just, as white, I would really want to put pressure on that knight on f6, because we've returned to that a couple of times. That really holds everything together for black. So I would probably play rook f8 again with then for example you threaten to take on f6, because then afterwards that rook on e4 would be hanging, right? Would be unprotected. So I always try to look at things like that.
Yeah, so just to show you guys what that's all about. Oh, I've gone behind. So rook f8, and then I'll just play a random move for black, and then if you take, that's what's called removing the defender of the rook. So you would end up losing a knight after that sequence of moves.
So do you think this benching of Ronaldo means that he may be benched more often because he's old?
Yeah, probably very occasionally. He has had Champions
Mhm.
League midweek, hasn't he? He's played 90 minutes. 90 minutes in midweek,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
probably just managing him a bit. And I would have thought he's going to be playing all the Portugal games in the international break. That's another 3 games in quick
Hmm.
succession.
Yeah.
So yeah, I wouldn't expect it to be a very often occurrence, but yeah. Note here that I know it's Black's move, but actually the knight is currently hanging because of the pin
Yeah.
that the rook has on the
And
king.
what are you going to do about it? Because you can't remove the knight because then the rook is hanging. So this is really
Yeah,
okay.
that's the
So
move,
this
isn't it?
is
Defend it.
yeah.
Mm.
Although now there's a double attack where with Queen C7 that attacks that rook on F4, but also threatens mate on G7.
So yeah, threatening mate. Yeah,
And
this is over, isn't it?
then that should be lights out. Yeah, it's a problem.
Alternatively, you could attack the rook with bishop G3 and then bring the bishop in to attack the knight, maybe.
Hmm.
Probably not as clean, but it's another option.
No.
I
You
do
could also
like your
take
move.
on G7. You can also take on G7 with the rook. Black takes back with the king, and then you play Queen C7 check, and then subsequently take on F4.
Right, yeah.
A little bit of time trouble still, though, for white.
Just
So,
needs to be careful he doesn't get too low.
exactly.
Just never know what can happen in time trouble.
He likes to play it safe, I notice, right? So he likes to keep things together
Yeah.
and sort of avoid chaos. Still very, very clearly winning, of course.
Mm.
And now also the getting that bishop on D4 is coming into play again, which is really the ideal position for the bishop.
Yeah. I think I'm probably similar to Hasan in that sense. I'm also one of those players like, just don't. I won't make any mistakes if I don't take any risks with sacrifices and things like that, unless I can clearly see the tactic.
Yeah.
In which case, and I know it's fine, but that's
I
definitely
play the exact same
weakness.
way, especially if you're up in material as much,
Yeah, right.
then
Yeah.
there's no reason to take any kind of risk.
And in blitz,
So
yeah, like if it's
now,
blitz and I see something like, does it work? I'm not sure. Yeah.
now bishop D4.
Yeah.
That really. I like this as well.
Yeah, that's fine. I mean, threatening mate, you're almost pretty much forcing the queens off the board there. Well, yeah, you are, aren't you? Got a couple more people saying hi in the chat. We're just probably coming to the end of the match now. But hey, FPL Buddy and FPL Slovakia, who presumably captained Rafinha by that comment.
Oh wow, that's
Bold.
Yeah, I like it.
Yeah. I was considering taking a -8, which involved selling Trent down to a City defender and then upgrading Gray to Rafinha, but I decided against it in the end. It's just a bit much.
A -8? You said a -8. Yeah, that's
Would have been -8.
Yeah, that's a bit much. Could be a high-scoring game then.
Yeah.
Watford Leeds game.
So yeah, Black is trying to advance the A pawn up the board, but it's not going to be enough.
It's always what you want to do if your opponent has a passed pawn. You just put your rooks behind it.
The one disadvantage of trading off the queens is the threat of mate is pretty much gone.
Yeah, although now bishop e3, instead of taking on a4, bishop e3 would have pinned the... you can still do it now. Bishop e3 wins everything. Right, because you attack the rook, but you can't remove it.
He's missed it, but he's still okay.
Yeah.
So that was why he had the pin there. Yeah.
Now you can still do it.
Yeah, stick bishop on e3. interesting. Still fine.
Many all the roads lead to Rome here, right?
Yeah, exactly. Can't save. Actually, can save the. That's the only way of saving the g6 pawn, I believe. There.
Yeah, but now bishop e3 is even
Still there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think he's going to play it.
You'll see it eventually.
No. No, you could take an f6 now.
Yeah, when
So
another
now
piece, and that's it.
that was it. Resigned.
Well, there we go. That's the end.
Well, good day for Hasan.
Yeah. So
Well
what does
played.
That's quite good for him in terms of the table. This isn't actually completely up to date. I think there have been a couple of games yesterday that I haven't put on the spreadsheet yet, but Hasan lost his first match, so that's an important win for him. Especially when in that league there are some quite highly rated players, kind of 17, 1800, that are on paper a bit better than him. So it's good for his chances of staying up. So yeah, important win for him.